friends, and welcome to another episode of Kobold Talk, the podcast where you can take in a little bit of kobold magic, discover new ways to make your kobolds more fun, and most importantly, take candle. My name is Casey, and welcome to episode 1 of Kobold Talk. Today we're going to talk a little bit about kobold stories, some facts, different things maybe you have or have not heard about kobolds, and we're going to talk about even painting kobolds, because that's the thing. You can do that. Little miniature plastic or metal kobolds. But first, I'm going to hand it over to my co-host, Brent, and we're going to talk about some kobolds. What's up, Brent? How's it going this koboldy day?
Hey, Casey. Good to talk to you. So I'm glad we're having this chat now. Really just 36 hours ago or so, I posted a video up on my YouTube channel. Which is not a kobold-specific YouTube channel, but I was able to get out a little bit of kobold content. So put out a video about painting some very expensive kobolds. And while I do like to see some high-quality kobold models, I think kobolds are for everybody. And so I was definitely disappointed at the price point. So I had a little bit of chat about that, and yeah, those were kobolds, the kobold models that were expensive enough. Those are from the new WizKids Frameworks lines that I don't think many people are going to buy them. So I wanted to show you what they were and paint them up and kind of put that content out there for free so that everybody could at least experience this model kit, even if they ultimately end up going and buying many of the cheaper kobolds out on the market.
Right. How much was the kit? I did see the video. I know it was expensive, but maybe for people who haven't seen that video, how much was that actual kit, and how many kobolds came in that kit? Right.
So if you didn't see the video, it was a kit of 7 kobolds for $50. I know not everybody. That's a lot, right? It's a lot. And just to put that in context, because not everybody lives in the United States, you can get a 2-item combo meal from Panda Express for $8 or $9. So that's so what you do is you say, I want a 2-item combo, and they say, okay, what's your carb? You want noodles or rice or fried rice? And you say lo mein, you get the fried noodles, and then they say, okay, what are your 2 entrees? And you say orange chicken. And they say, and then
orange chicken.
Yeah, no, that's right. And you pay them $8 or $9, and so you can do this every day for a work week. Depending on whether or not you're getting a drink on the side, and
sure.
That's a lot of lunch. That's a lot of pretty good lunch for the price of this pack of 7 little kobolds. Yeah. And I know a lot of our fans, they are willing to make that trade. Absolutely. But that's not an option for everybody, So today we'll talk a little bit about, kobolds where you can get 7 for $7.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about the options for 3D printing kobolds.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. Why don't we start? Maybe we'll start on a little bit more of a basic level. Why don't we go through what is a kobold? We've been talking about kobolds this whole time. We haven't even said what kobolds are. So
that's on us.
I know. Yeah. I apologize. This is the first episode. We're really just trying to work out the kinks on that. We're just not very good at podcasting. So, as they say, there's kobolds in the system, you know what I mean? So we're really trying to work that out. But here's some straight kobold facts, some little bit of history. Now, you might be surprised to know that kobolds are in fact based on real fairy tales in Europe. Did you know that, Brent?
I did, but I think it's really important that we're getting back to the basics here. So
that's true.
Lead on, Casey.
All right. Well, kobold in German folklore is a mischievous household spirit who usually helps with chores, gives other valuable services, but who often hides household and farm tools or kicks over stooping persons. He is temperamental and becomes outraged when he's not properly fed, and he sometimes sings to children. Now, I like that story because You know, a lot of the times, there's something happens when you're just by yourself at home, and who's to blame, you know? So it's so nice to just be, that kobold, he kicked me over while I was stooping to pick up my tools. And I like that. I like that idea. So, it's fun.
You got a kobold in the system.
Exactly.
Kind of like a gremlin in the system.
Right.
And in those historical uses, a lot of the language actually kind of blended between kobolds and goblins.
That's true.
Some of the etymology goes back to ancient Greece, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But a lot of the reference were from 13th century German peasantry, which is in some ways kind of cool, because I learned that the German peasantry would actually carve kobolds in their homes, which is very similar to what we do, actually.
That's true. That is very true.
And, the peasants back then didn't have access to a lot of pigments, but I gotta believe some of them at least, did a little bit of staining or varnishing, or at least, oiled up their little carvings of kobolds to
I'm sure
preserve them. And
you get the oils out of some kind of a goat sack or something that would shine up some wood real nice. Yeah. I'm sure that's a thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And if you are into woodworking and kobolds, then maybe leave us a comment down in the comments section. That is youtube.com/Kobold Bravely, the podcast. Thank you very much.
Thanks for putting that in there, my co-host.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. Now, I think we should clarify that in these older interpretations of the theme and the majesty of kobolds, these were not necessarily the quirky little lizards that we're all thinking of top of mind. They had more human-like characteristics. So almost like little people or little gnomes or a little bit goblin-like.
A little bit. Yeah. Pointy ears, things like that.
Yeah. Or like elf in the Keebler elf kind of sense of the word.
Sure. Yeah. That makes sense.
But even then, there were the tales of them living underground, which starts to get into that more modern interpretation.
That's true, which we can kind of break down a little bit. Obviously, it being the year that it is, our view on kobolds today is quite a bit different. Now, you might see kobolds with candles, kobolds without candles, kobolds with scales, kobolds without scales. It's a little bit out there. In fact, not even that long ago, kobolds were technically dogs. And then they changed.
Were they?
They were.
I didn't see that one.
In mostly Asian cultures, if I'm being correct.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
I mean, in modern terms, I think this tiny rat-like creature that lives in tunnels versus a tiny lizard-like creature that lives in tunnels. I think in modern terms, that's the real dichotomy of kobolds, the two halves of the coin.
That's kind of where we landed, as it were.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, which I guess which interpretation do you prefer?
All right. I've got a theory that's based kind of off of Wowpedia here, but I was looking at Wowpedia and they have a phonetic spelling of the kobold as it refers to the tiny rat person.
Okay.
And according to Wowpedia, kobold is pronounced bald.
Kobold.
Bald. Now, bald. BAWLD is how they're spelling that second syllable there. Now, I think both of us pronounce it bold.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's how I've definitely heard it the most. I didn't know there was another.
Confident, bold.
Yeah. Which they are. So I most of the time it seems appropriate.
Now, the community editors over there at Wowpedia are people that I've come to trust over the years.
That's true. That's very true.
I think they probably put a lot of effort in when they were spelling out the phonetics for kobolds as it applies to World of Warcraft.
As it applies to World of Warcraft, I could see that being maybe up for interpretation, right? They decided they wanted to take orcs and elves and kobolds, and kind of change them up a little bit, change the phonetic spelling.
Right.
Quite a while ago, I think they really did that. They tried to differentiate. Like, I think orcs for them has, I want to say it has a C in it, like the old Lord of the Rings style. I can't remember. I could be wrong.
Yeah, Warcraft orcs are spelled with a C. That's for sure.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different than even some of the other creatures that we may have run into in and out of other fantasy style games.
Right.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And they look different, right? They're rat people.
They do. Now, interestingly, the design from Dungeons and Dragons with the lizard people and World of Warcraft with the rat people, they both kind of have like a goatee. Like that's the unifying aspect is like the overall size and the little goatee. So the rats have like a goatee of hair, and the kobolds in Dungeons and Dragons kind of have that thing that some interpretations of dragons have, where the dragons have like a pointy chin.
Sure.
I think for some dragons that's actually bone, like a pointy chin bone, and for others, I don't know if it's like wobbly flesh or what, but they definitely have like a pointy goatee down there.
Wobbly flesh.
Right? You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
You
Wobbly
do,
flesh.
you do.
That's a good one. I'd like to think that it's a bone, because like your chin is definitely a bone already, right? Like it would grow down.
Yeah, I mean, for some interpretations I've seen, it has that pointy chin, but it has enough similarity to a beard that I think it would not be a bone in some cases.
So it's like a beard bone.
A beard bone.
A beard bone. I got
exactly.
you. It's so that the silhouette of the kobold, in the dark or maybe to a predator, can look a little more intimidating with a gnarly beard. Yeah.
Right. Because they're lurking around in caverns. To a degree, they're lurking around in dragon lairs. And if you're an adventurer, level 2, 3 adventurer, going through a cavern system, and things are just lit up by torchlight every 100 feet or so, and then you turn a corner, and you see this silhouette. You see these shadows on the wall,
right?
Down in this distant cave, and there's these two dragons gibbering at each other, high on the wall, outlined.
That would be intimidating.
I think that level 2, that level 3 character turns around, says to their level 2 friend, "We gotta go back. We gotta get out of here."
I can see how this makes sense. Now, if say the kobolds were standing around fire and they are at the other end of a cave, and this silhouette is being projected up onto the cave wall, then an adventurer might see that and turn and run away, because mayhaps there are two large dragons who are going to eat them. Now, I do wonder if this plays into the common conception that kobolds don't like it when people take their candles. Now, the reason I say that is because perhaps that if a kobold has a candle more often than not, then the silhouette projected with a nice beard bone really keeps them alive. It's more of a defense mechanism than anything else.
Hey, this all makes sense. Now we've been talking, the idea of kobolds has kind of changed and evolved over the centuries. Obviously, the idea of kobolds has been important to humans for generations upon generations at this point, but we're really starting to get to a point where we almost agree on what a kobold is and what the essence is that makes it so important to human mythology. I think that's why we enjoy painting kobolds so much.
I think that's true. And honestly, if I had to choose a model to paint any day of the week, it would definitely be a kobold. And there are lots and lots of varieties, as we did mention. So now that we've kind of caught up on the history, we've talked a little bit about the models, why don't we get into some of the varieties of models that are out there that we can get our hands on, and maybe how to get them.
Absolutely. So when you're not doing this podcast, Kobold Talk, you run a YouTube channel, eBay Miniature Rescues.
I do.
So how do you like to get your kobolds?
Well, generally, I like to 3D print my kobolds.
Oh, okay.
I know what you were thinking. I know. But you know what? eBay is just there's not very many kobolds on eBay. Now, I will tell you that if you want the best kobolds, okay, secret kobold area is Etsy. That's where you want to go, because not only are there normal models, PVC, pewter, anything else like that people are making or selling on Etsy, but there's a lot of handcrafted kobolds, and that's really what you want, especially if you're trying to get a little kobold avatar for your house, for a loved one. That's really where you want to go. Yeah,
kobolds make great gifts.
Oh yes,
they really do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think
really
that's
occasion.
That's true. For any occasion,
you can put them. Yeah, put them on a birthday cake. You get some really nice ones that actually kobold candles look really nice on a birthday cake.
Yeah.
They're perfect size for stocking stuffers. You know, it's Christmas morning and you get a few fun things in your stocking, and then, oh, what's this? Down, it kind of fell down to the very toe of the stocking. Oh, there's something else down here. What is it?
They call that a toebold.
Yeah, toebold. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, those are the best kind of kobolds. A secret one.
I think we all have memories of that on Christmas morning.
Definitely.
Just something to really round out Christmas morning is just that last little kobold is the best thing that could possibly be down there in the toe region.
100% agree. Yeah. But yeah, I think Etsy is probably where I would source my kobolds generally. There's a good variety on there. Like I said, and you can get the 3D printable stuff on there. I like those because I got some more options. I got size options, right, with a 3D printer. Whereas buying them straight, I don't always have that size option. I don't necessarily like my kobolds to be 7 to a palm, if you know what I mean. That's right. Just not my kind of kobold, and especially for $50.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a lot of comments on that YouTube video I made of people talking about, how much resin $50 can buy.
At least 2 bottles.
How much? Yeah, you get into the point of 2 bottles. Yeah.
The big bottles.
Some people were saying a bottle plus a couple of packs of STL files.
That's a good point. You got to buy those files. Yeah.
And but hey, once you have them, 3D printer goes brrr.
Unlimited.
If it's not working. Yeah.
Well, unless it's not working, but that's for another time. Yeah. That's kobolds getting in the 3D printing systems. That's got to watch out for that.
Right. But I was actually really interested to see how many of the kobold fans out there are into 3D printing. Mm-hmm. Now, yeah. Again, my YouTube channel is not strictly kobolds the way this podcast is, but sometimes I dabble in D&D, sometimes Warhammer, which doesn't actually have a lot of kobolds. We'll talk about whether Warhammer has some secret kobolds here in just a moment. Mm-hmm. Right, right. Now, Warhammer models are typically priced just at the absolute maximum of what the market will bear in terms of value of Warhammer models. And so in some ways, 3D printing came natural to that community because of cost-saving measures. And so it's very typical to see comments on Warhammer videos, 3D printer goes burr. You should just buy a 3D printer. Oh, for the cost of 2 of those models, you could get a 3D printer. I would just 3D print that. 3D printed sculpts are so much better. Games Workshop is pricing themselves out of the market now that 3D printing is getting so good. And it's something you expect to see on Warhammer videos. There's
that's a good point, yeah.
There's kind of a disgruntled fan base that of, you know, a lot of people who I don't think will ever actually invest in a 3D printer, who just kind of use that as like a little talking point. But I was very interested to see on this recent Dungeons and Dragons video that I made, this D&D video, and specifically Kobold video that I made.
Yeah.
That like half of the comments in responding to the price were talking about 3D printing. And I don't think of Dungeons and Dragons as having that same disgruntled fan base when it comes to miniature prices. And so it was very interesting to see, like, even more comments than normal, more comments than almost any video I've seen before, especially for a video where I didn't use the term 3D print, 3D printer, STL file.
Right. You weren't going with that angle, and here it is.
Like often those words show up at some point during the script of a video, or very often they end up in the keywords for a video. This was a video where I'm pretty sure I made no reference to 3D printing, just because I was talking about sprue models. That was the topic of the day. But it was at least a third of the comments, maybe closer to a half of the comments, were talking about 3D printing kobolds. And this is something that is really taking the hobby community by storm, is 3D printing kobolds. So why don't you talk about that, Casey?
Well, you mentioned that a lot of these people that are coming out are likely D&D players, right? You know, they're coming out and saying, like, well, if I'm playing D&D, like, I'm gonna buy a 3D printer and I'm gonna print my models. Sculpts are better, whatever. Well, both you and I happen to know a YouTube channel called the 3D Printing DM, right?
Tabletop. 3D printed tabletop.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, let me back that up. Yeah,
it's 3D printed. Yeah.
3D printed tabletop with the 3D printing DM Danny, right? That entire channel is based around Dungeons and Dragons and 3D printing, and it's a very successful channel. So, makes sense that a lot of D&D players have invested in that. So, yeah, I mean, when it comes to like premium expensive models, like the D&D community has definitely been on this 3D printer side for a lot longer than most other people, early adopters, right? Because in Dungeons and Dragons, every single time you sit down, it's like, well, I need X, Y, and Z if I want a physical representation of this on my table. Right. So how are you going to do that? You're going to build it every time? Some people do, and they're very good at it. But nowadays, with 3D printing being so accessible, you might as well just print it out. In fact, Danny sells several packs of wonderful kobolds.
He does.
And I've been lucky enough to paint a good handful of those kobolds, and there have been some of my more favorite models in the last year or so. I think I painted them, like middle 2021, somewhere in there.
Sounds right.
Yeah. Yep. And that was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
So there's just that correlation that already exists between Dungeons and Dragons and 3D printing, which is very interesting for the company to then double down on like PVC plastic models, right? Because they already have an audience doing something else. So it's very strange to me.
Well, there have been a lot of companies over the years who both officially and unofficially have made miniatures for Dungeons and Dragons. There are a lot of minis that are not officially branded D&D minis, but are absolutely out there selling human fighters and kobolds and all kinds of other familiar faces. Some of them are a little bit harder to steal. You got to have a giant tentacle eyeball monster instead of a beholder if you're not paying for that license. But I mean, they're sure. But in terms of these kobolds that I made a video on, this was the first polystyrene officially licensed kobold sprue ever made, I think. And it's kind of interesting that I'm pretty sure it is. And it's kind of interesting that it's taken like 40 years of Dungeons and Dragons to get to this point.
That's a good point. That's true.
Because this is such a key race in the world, kobolds.
Like you mentioned, it's this level 1, 2, 3. Like you're probably going to be encountering some kobolds. It's a very common staple of Dungeons and Dragons.
That's like the fastest way you start interacting with Dragonkin, you know?
Right.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Exactly.
But if your party stops hanging out before level 15, you're not going to be meeting dragons. You're going to be meeting kobolds.
What this is really doing is just mitigating the fact that no D&D group makes it past level 3 or 4. So you're never going to see dragons in the Dungeons and Dragons part. This is how they shoehorn that in.
Yeah. Well, look, no spoilers, but I'm doing another podcast that is not Kobold specific, but it's a Dungeons and Dragons podcast called 20-Sided Realms.
Sure.
Yep, the 20-Sided Realms, TSRP. And we're doing a little adventure in Waterdeep. And I think at some point the words dragon heist might come into this adventure. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see. And no spoilers, but the party makes it to at least level 2. So we may get to a point where we're interacting with like beefy kobolds. Or
I mean, so far there have been a few, and the interactions have been delightful. Yes, I've quite enjoyed those kobold interactions so far.
So how's your D&D group going, Casey?
Oh, that dissolved.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, we didn't make it past level 1.
Is this a sore subject? I'm sorry.
No. I mean, yes, but I'll talk about it anyways. So yeah, we were playing, and you know, sometimes you just get one of those characters, one of those people, right, who just wants to be the actually guy. And actually, I just don't give a shit, and I don't want any part of that. So I'm not. Feels good. That being said, my friend who invited me to that game, pretty much we just disbanded the whole thing, kicked out the people we didn't want, and we're starting over. So he's homebrewing up a whole different thing. We're going to be doing something else. He's still working on some stuff, and we're going to try again in a much more, let's say, positive and encouraging environment where funny stuff is allowed to happen, and we can have fun. So I'm looking forward to starting yet again. Hopefully, make it past
back to level
2 sessions.
1.
Yes, back to level 1.
Back to level 1.
New character, new name, new everything. So far in my career, my career of playing D&D since I was little, never made it past, I think, 2 or 3. Hasn't happened.
Right back into the groove. Yeah, it's fun to get back, go through those fun early levels. Really in the range where you get to meet the best creatures in a way. Sometimes the simplest little buddies are the best.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why we maybe share an affinity. Like, we really like these kobolds because, you know what, we just encounter them so often playing Dungeons and Dragons from the start so many times that it's almost endearing how nice it is to see them.
Absolutely. I mean, in some properties it's goblins more and more often.
Maybe rats in a cellar, but
as kind of as an inferior replacement, honestly.
Oh yeah.
At least in our opinion, And I know the last time, Casey, that you and I saw each other in person, really in the last couple of hours of the time that we got to spend together down in Florida last year, we were playing a one-shot D&D adventure where the vast majority of the quest givers, enemies, allies, and friendly NPCs were kobolds.
That's right.
Now you and I were actually playing as halfling acrobats from the circus.
Correct. Yes.
On loan from the circus to help out a small band of kobolds. And
yes.
If I remember correctly, I think we may have murdered a few.
We did kind of, but we were provoked. It was a thing.
We covered our tracks.
We did.
We hit it up. There was plausible deniability for that charred little lizard corpse that we left behind. But it just goes to show that so many good memories for all of us.
That's true.
Are tied up in these mythical creatures. And that has been the case for hundreds of years. Yeah.
Well, did you know, I'm going to throw out a kobold, koboldy fact, I guess.
Yep.
So kobolds, contrary to popular belief, are actually as smart as humans. Yeah, no joke.
What?
Yeah.
I learn something new every day.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's a true statement. They also live to be 120 years old on average.
Some of them have wings. I saw that somewhere.
Oh, yeah. They can turn into dragons, too. Sometimes. Yeah.
I think you have to play like longer into the campaign to see that.
Yeah, I mean, that's some infinite level that you have to hit that no one ever has. So it's, it's mythical, I'm sure.
I guess it could be done as like a cutscene. If the DM has like a perfectly crafted encounter where you certainly don't have to fight a flying
that's true.
kobold that's turning into a dragon. But
yeah.
Maybe you just you walk by like a cliff and on the other side of a ravine you see this happening. It's just a cutscene kind of thing. Yeah.
I just picture a little kobold kind of standing there. He's standing on the little cliffside, maybe kicking a rock, and all of a sudden just what's going on? And you can't really hear him. Right, you can see him. You're like, well, what's that little guy doing? All of a sudden, his body just rips in half. His wings come out the back, and he starts flying around and is screaming. He has no idea what's happening. It's terrible. I feel so bad for him. I would still laugh though.
That's so cool. I love it. I love it.
It's good.
Oh, it's so cool. All right. Now we started part of this talk. You were getting into 3D printed kobolds. What do you got there?
I'm just getting a drink from my Kobold Cup.
That's a big gulp right there. Is it a Kobold Cup because the kobolds love 7-Eleven, or is it?
They would.
That big gulp?
They really would, wouldn't they?
They would.
No, I feel like this is probably the size of maybe a small kobold, and it feels good to hold.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, what you got in there?
I got a little bit of Mountain Dew watermelon and Diet Dr. Pepper.
Oh my, man, we are on the same wavelength here, because I've got here Mountain Dew Major Melon. Dew charged with melon.
That's exactly what I put in to my Diet Dr. Pepper.
We're just a couple of kobold loving, dew sucking co-hosts over here. That's what we are.
That's exactly. You know what? I knew this was a good idea. That makes a lot of sense. Makes me feel better about the longevity of this podcast.
It does. You're gonna be dealing with a lot of episodes of this podcast.
A lot of episodes.
This one isn't dying after 1 or 2 episodes. No way, no how.
No way, no. It's like most D&D, good D&D campaigns. This will go the distance. I should mention though that the next episode, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but the next episode is gonna be Brent and Casey in person together at the same table.
That's right. I'm excited. So we're heading into real life talk here. We're heading into convention season.
Oh yes.
Sort of.
Yeah. Sort of.
Gamma, which is game.
It's a game manufacturers.
Yeah, I think that. Okay, that's all the letters you need. Game and manufacturers. Yep.
Well, the GA in Gamma is like game, so I'm not sure how they got that. They just didn't want to say GMA because maybe that would be like grandma, and they just didn't want to get it confused. And gamma, like gamma radiation, sounds cooler. I don't know.
Yeah, GA game.
Right.
MA manufacturers.
Something.
It's a game convention.
Yeah.
It's a game convention.
Yeah, it's like a trade show.
Yeah, a trade show, and it is in your hometown of Reno, and I'm flying out because my local game store owner Brendan has been telling me about this for years, and it's something he goes to every year to check out upcoming games.
Yep.
And see what he needs to be stocking his store up with for the next year to make sure that customers have all the latest and sci-fi and fantasy and German-based train games for the upcoming season.
Yes, and it's also the best place to find new kobolds. So
I think it will be, and that is really why I'm going.
Oh yeah, me too. I wouldn't bother otherwise.
Right. I mean, I know Brendan, my friendly local game store owner, I mean, he's probably going to be looking for like tile laying games about the French countryside and making like weird little French castles and stuff.
That makes sense.
Maybe some like deck building games. But I mean, you and we know why we're going.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
We'll make the rounds. We'll make some new friends.
That's definitely the goal. So yeah, you'll be flying in pretty soon, and we're gonna do that. That's a whole week-long trade show convention.
Yeah, it is. And then it's actually not too far before Adepticon.
It is, in fact, like 4 days, 3 days, something like that before. Yeah.
So we've worked out a system where we're going to go to Gamma. I am then going to spend the next few days living in your hobby room.
Yes, that is correct. In this painting
small creatures of some kind, and then we're going to fly together to Adepticon and just keep the party going.
Pretty much. It's gonna be a long 2 weeks. Let me tell you, it's gonna be a lot of Kobold talk.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's gonna be good. It's going to be good. Hopefully we'll get some podcasting in, record episodes 4 and 5 of Kobold Talk, and then we're going to paint some models and get a lot of stuff done. It's going to be pretty exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. We need to decide whether we're doing episodes 4 and 5 on the same day. Are we just doing it all in one big long recording session? Are we going to take some breaks for some Mountain Dews?
That's a good point. I mean, I think Mountain Dew breaks are definitely in order in between, but there's so much to talk about kobolds that I think we're just gonna have to do back to back, like 4 or 5, maybe 6. I don't know. It depends on the day. How much Mountain Dew we have.
It won't even be a choice. Like, we're just going to keep on going, and we're going to realize that, hey, we got to break this up. Like, it's fun to do a mega episode. It is really fun to do a mega episode on kobolds, but I think we may end up like realizing, hey, instead of 1 4.5 episode, let's chop this into 2.
That's a good point. I like that idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
The 2-parter. Ooh, like we have a cliffhanger. Yes. I like that.
Good. So, all right, Casey, I know you wanted to talk about this. You have written down here, what is your favorite kobold that you have painted?
Ooh, yeah.
And I don't know if that you want to do this, like, what's your favorite kobold that you've painted in the last year, or like all-time favorite kobold that you've painted?
Well, so that particular differentiation kind of plays into a little bit of what we brought up earlier about the Warhammer conversation of secret kobolds.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to go into that because I think that was on your to-do. Yeah.
All right. I want to talk about this. Now, again, this is something that came up in the Kobold comment section of my recent Kobold video. And people were saying, like, hey, 7 kobolds for $50 isn't accessible to everyone, and everyone deserves kobolds. And they were saying, like, hey, like let's look for some alternate model kits here. And they were saying that for $50, you can get like 20 Games Workshop Warhammer Age of Sigmar skinks.
Yes.
And so these are like part of the lizardmen faction of old, and they're basically the smallest lizards.
Yeah, they're very tiny.
So these are like small, kind of aquatic sometimes, I think, lizards. And they're
yeah.
So these are small plastic lizards.
Yes.
Seraphon skinks. Are these acceptable proxies for kobolds? What do you think, Casey?
Now, because we all need kobolds in our lives, especially the Warhammer folks, I'm going to give it a pass. As long as the skink carries a pointy weapon. Something pointy. Some kind of dagger, maybe a spear.
Yeah. And this is something that we haven't really gotten into, but kobolds are clever. I mean, you're saying that they're as intelligent as a human, and it depends on the human.
Oh, well, exactly.
But in terms of arming themselves with the junk that they have access to, I think they do a pretty good job. They'll pound some rusty nails into sticks.
Right.
They'll find pointy sticks. Oh, excuse me.
Oh, kobold you.
Pointy sticks. Yeah. I mean, they'll use little rusty pieces of metal to all the advantage they can, and so, I mean, you have a point that kobolds will make pointy little weapons. I mean, you could see them sometimes. You'll see them with a not pointy club, but
a club is mostly acceptable. Some kind of bludgeoning, beating, stabbing type of a weapon, right? And clubs, traditionally can have spikes on them, so
sure,
that's fine. A spiky club, or one that'll give you a real bad splinter. Those are the worst.
Yeah. Now, the model kits for a lot of the Seraphon skinks have blowguns. Like blow darts.
Okay.
Is that a kobold kind of weapon, do you think?
I mean, okay. That might be a little borderline. But again, I'm going to default to that everyone deserves kobolds.
Yeah.
And if that's what you have, you know what? Power to you.
I agree. Like, you make do with what you have. You use the power of imagination. You take what the market's given to you and you make it your own.
Yeah.
And you do your best with it. I gotta say though, the skinks, they don't have the pointy chin.
Oh yeah. Okay.
They have a webbed crest on their heads, on the top of their heads a lot of times.
That's true.
So whereas in D&D, the small lizard people have that kind of protrusion under their chin, the kind of the goatee look under the chin. The Seraphon skinks have something on the top of the head. And, I know Games Workshop is always trying to mess with their IP and make it all a little bit different.
That's true.
So originally, instead of calling these creatures kobolds, they called them lizard man skinks. And then they wanted to protect that even a little bit more, so it became Seraphon skinks.
Right.
And
space lizards.
And they really don't have. They barely even have chins, if we're being honest.
That's true. They're very rounded. The beard bone is mostly non-existent in these. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the larger ones do have a funky beard bone that comes down into like almost a reverse two J's, one back, and you got this little thing.
Okay.
They got a little bit of that. That's a weird silhouette, but
you can see that they were really inspired by kobolds. And I think we all know that Games Workshop mines other properties for basically all of their character design.
Yeah.
And so I think we can kind of see the origins in kobolds for skinks. And so in that respect, if for some reason the cheapest kobold model you can get is Warhammer Skinks, hey, all right.
Yeah, I like it.
And I gotta say, the more I think about it, I think a kobold with a blowgun is cool. I think that's cool.
That's pretty fancy. Like, and it kind of makes sense. Like, you see, like, pygmies a lot of the time with blowguns, right? Somehow pygmies can make poisonous blowgun darts and such. Like, why not a kobold? Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I like that. That's cool. Yeah. Okay. So.
Although, I'm thinking about it more.
Oh.
Kobolds kind of have a little bit of like a Wolfy grin,
Occasionally, yeah.
So they'll have those kind of teeth sticking out past their gums sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking back from Band, the mouth embouchure, like your ability to maintain a tight seal and put a lot of force through your lips.
I got you. Yeah.
I think if you have teeth sticking down past your bottom lip, I think that breaks the seal, and I think that makes it very hard to get the force you need for a blowgun. So,
oh man,
I don't know. Maybe it's something like the youngest kobolds before they really grow in their canines. Right. Maybe they could be messing around.
That would make sense. Like a skinks,
but
maybe they got like this thing on their head because it hasn't quite maybe like traveled down their face somehow and created that beard bone, and their teeth haven't developed, so they have soft, floppy, like you were saying, that floppy skin thing. Yeah.
Right.
So they can put that pressure on. That makes sense.
Huh.
Yeah, it was a little stretch, I'll give you just a little, but not a hard stretch. Yeah.
I'd be interested in running an all kobold campaign, if we're being honest here.
For sure. That, you know what? I don't know why we haven't done that before. That seems perfect.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll put that on the list. If we're going to be hanging out for a couple of weeks, there's really no excuse not to make like a 3-episode, mini series about this campaign. Yeah.
Oh, that would be interesting. Kobold Talk, the 5e campaign. We just run nothing but kobolds. You know what we might want to do too? Why don't we, I don't know, we could start at above level 3 as kobolds.
Oh.
You can play as a kobold now in 5e. As one.
That's a good point.
Yeah. We'll just skip all the BS and just skip.
There's some characters I got to kill off. But yes, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I've got a human character right now. He uses a lot of fire magic, so
that's true.
He might have to, go down in a blaze of glory, as it were, and and then maybe the next session the party meets a friendly little kobold. That
would be nice, yeah. So anyways, we were talking about the whole Warhammer thing because I threw us off on that bit of a tangent because we were talking about what was our actual favorite kobold that we painted within the last year or so, or of all time even. And that's why I just wanted to make sure we got that Warhammer stuff in there. It made sense, and that way we kind of count that, or at least we had that back and forth to see whether or not it counted. Since we pretty much do, I'm going to say I painted a kobold riding a dinosaur. I did.
What?
It was a Warhammer one. We're stretching. We're making it count. This one had the beard bone. He's definitely a lizard man. He had a pointy stick weapon, so I think I'm okay with that. He was riding that lizard and riding it good, and it was awesome.
Nice.
As a close runner up, though, I did paint this rad albino kobold from that campaign that we did play in Florida. And he had some sweet goggles on, and that was a real fun model to paint, actually. And I'm gonna throw the pictures of that guy to editor Matt so we can put them up on the screen. In fact, both those models. So yeah, again,
you can't take that one. That one's my favorite.
What? You didn't paint it? Did you paint
no,
one?
I didn't.
Or it's just my paint job is your favorite of ever all time?
I painted that model more recently than you did, and I painted it with teal skin.
Oh, you're right. I did see that. I did see that.
I might paint that one again. So this is a kobold from Danny's Lost Adventures Kickstarter. And these are kind of bigger kobolds. They're scaled to be like 25 millimeter scale, like look like decent sized at 25 millimeter scale, and big enough so that there's a lot of nice detail to paint on there.
Yes.
And this one has these goggles on, and he also has what looks like a bedroll with sticks sticking out of it across his back.
I want to say they're tools because he's supposed to be an engineer for the king.
Oh, yeah.
Which also brings into the fact that, they're as intelligent or more intelligent in probably a lot of cases than humans, right? This one in particular is a kobold engineer, which is why he has the cool goggles. He welds stuff and engineers things. He has a PhD, I'm sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like those pliers, but anyway, I've slowly been scheming up a Rain in Hell warband. So this is from Vince Venturella and Adam over at Tabletop Minions, and it's the Demons game, the model agnostic Demons game.
Are you really running all kobolds?
No, I'm not all kobolds.
All right,
not all kobolds.
Dibs.
That would be fun though.
Dibs.
Okay, you got it.
I got dibs.
You got it. Right. So it's model agnostic, but it has demon descriptions like armored demon and berserker demon and tentacle demon, and there's one that's like torture master or something.
There you go.
And for a little while I was like, I don't know what to do for that. That's intense. Like the torture master demon. That's messed up.
Isn't that like just on brand in most demons? Isn't that kind of the idea?
Right. It's so explicitly spelling it out like that. It's like, this guy's got to be extra twisted.
Yeah.
And so for a little while, I was looking at like dark elf witches and stuff, like just like torture creatures of pain.
It would definitely be like the cute guy with the little pair of pliers, right?
Oh, he's diabolical.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the torture. He's got his apron. He's got his goggles.
Yes.
He's got his pliers, and across his back he has those sticks, which I'm gonna paint up as red whippy sticks.
Oh, yes.
From the old Warhammers.
Blue whippy sticks, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So he is gonna be in my Rain in Hell warband for sure. I love that model.
It's a good model. It's very good.
And of course. We're talking about this one kobold model and like all the applications of this one awesome little buddy, but there are so many good models out there.
There are.
So recently, Reaper sent me a few models, and in particular, they sent me some of their most recent Bones models, the most recent Reaper Bones, and it was a situation where I started looking at them and I'm like, this stuff is actually pretty good. Like as far as single piece models go, out of like not polystyrene plastic, I was looking at it like, this is because it just isn't a model line that I'd paid much attention to before, and it kind of had the reputation of being like the cheapest, Dungeons and Dragons models that you can get, and it kind of had a reputation of like very floppy plastic and everything, and I don't know, I just hadn't spent any time with them.
Well, aren't there two different kinds of Reaper models? There's like Reaper, and then there's Reaper Black. It's like one of them is slightly nicer, like has better plastic or something. I actually don't know.
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly when and where that line is, but yes, there is a good version of Reaper Bones for sure.
Yeah.
And part of that is this new casting technology or casting company, COcast.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's kind of spelled Cyocast, but it's pronounced COcast.
COcast.
Yeah. And essentially it's like small scale injection molding.
Okay.
So it's injection molding, but instead of metal molds or steel molds or whatever it is, it's vulcanized rubber. And so it's a little bit easier to do it on a smaller scale. And there's a few videos out there of one of these machines in action. It's essentially like a refrigerator-sized machine that you put in this, a mold kind of like the size of a monster manual, mold the size of, maybe it's the size of like the player's handbook plus the monster manual that you put into this refrigerator.
It's like 2 sides, right?
Yeah, it is a 2-sided mold. Yeah, the top and bottom half, you put them together, and they're pieces of rubber. You put them into, it's basically like a refrigerator with a hole in the front. You put the mold in there. It kind of sucks the mold into it and like raises it up, and a minute later it pops out the mold again, and you take it apart, and there's your minis inside.
Man, what a world.
What a world.
You get a kobold mold in a couple of minutes? That's crazy.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's an injection molding process that has essentially cheaper molds. So instead of steel molds, it's rubber molds mixed from like a 2-part casting rubber. Sure. Yeah. Silicon rubber. And as far as I know, Reaper is using this, Creature Caster is using it. Titan Forge has started actually making miniatures, and I think they're using it. And so it's definitely something I want to pay attention to. Anyway, a little bit of I don't mean to take us off topic here.
No, this is fantastic.
Yeah, Reaper sent me some samples, and one of the samples they sent me is a 6-pack of kobolds. Awesome. It's called Kobold Mooks or something.
Mooks, really? These are some feisty.
They're funny little buddies, but they're properly scaled because as you and our listeners know that kobolds are small humanoids, small lawful evil humanoids, and 25 millimeter scale, a kobold really should be a pretty small little buddy.
Yeah, they really look more like 15 mil models. If you were just saying that that's what size they are, but they're in the 25 mil scale, so it makes sense. Yeah,
a properly scaled kobold is pretty small, and for artistic reasons, I know Danny made his a little bit bigger. But there is a joy in painting a properly scaled kobold.
Sure, the tiny models, you can definitely get the same kind, maybe not the same kind of like joy. I mean, a good end product is a good end product. If you finish painting something, but painting a smaller model can be just as fun. Is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Sure.
I've definitely painted my fair share of tiny models, and when you nail like a tiny model, a tiny little face or a tiny little eyeball, man, that feels pretty good though. Yeah.
Now, I did do the eyeballs on those whiz kids.
You did. You did them good
I did.
too. Yeah.
I mean, they basically worked out. It basically worked. I think I used buff yellow. Maybe golden yellow.
It's pretty bright. Something like that. Buff makes sense. Buff's pretty bright.
Yeah. And then I actually got tiny little black dots basically in the right places, so that all worked out. But yeah, painting these tiny figures, it's interesting. They had sculpted like spots on the back, like the monster manual kobolds are kind of an orangey color. They have dark brown spots on their back, and then their front is like a lighter color. And
that's
so
like a dragon, I suppose.
Sure, yeah, sure, or any creature. The ventral side is a bit lighter than the dorsal side.
That's true.
Not all humanoids are like that, but a lot of creatures are. Yeah. And anyway, these models did have those back spots sculpted. There were little molded, kind of scales or whatever. But on something that small, I wasn't going to try to put the brown spots exactly where those little scales were.
Right.
I just kind of randomly put brown spots on the back.
Yeah.
And it all worked out.
Yeah.
There are definitely different rules to follow when you're, or different rules of thumb for making it work out well when you're painting a small model like that. And all in all, I thought they came out pretty well for the amount of time they took.
Yeah.
And from a mini painting point of view, if you care more about mini painting than Kobold specifically, it is fun to work in different scales. And so if you're 3D printing kobolds, print some proper size, nice and small. Print some a little bit bigger. You can fudge it and have them 25 millimeter, like big 25 millimeter scale.
Yeah.
Or for the fun of it, just make it as big as your printer will go. Make a big kobold. If the 13th century German peasantry had 3D printers, you better believe they'd max out the size on that, print those out, slather them in, goat sack oil.
Right.
And, have those to kind of protect the homestead.
Exactly. You put those things everywhere.
Absolutely. Every room in the house.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, back then, most houses, I think, were one room, so you could kind of put one in every corner.
That's a good point, actually. You really couldn't do that too much. Yeah.
Right. Now, so I don't have any tiny metal kobolds, but I was thinking about snotlings recently, the Warhammer snotlings.
Okay.
And those used to be in metal, and they're like a similar sized creature in a lot of ways.
That's true.
A properly scaled snotling is pretty close to the size of a properly scaled kobold.
Yeah. And
I gotta say, for that different mini size, different materials have different strengths and weaknesses at different scales. And I actually think metal kobolds would be okay. They're a little bit spindly, and so their pointy sticks you'd have to be careful with. You'd want to bulk out their forearms a little bit if you were going to cast them in metal. But I actually think the smaller the scale, the less important material is. Like for larger minis, I think a lot of people like polystyrene, but for very small models, hey, I'm cool with PVC and metal as well. Those both seem to work out all right for kobold-sized minis.
Yeah. Well, I think once you start hitting a certain size and scale, detail isn't necessarily like caked into the sculpt, right? It's like you're giving it almost an idea. Like you were saying, there's bumps down his back, but you place the spots kind of wherever you wanted, right? You're giving the idea that this thing that's super tiny is this little animal and it's got spots on his back. Like the sculpt, the detail is just not as important when you get smaller. So I definitely think that, whatever material is cheapest, and maybe in this case that like rubber stuff is really doing the job, but like pewter models that are that size, a lot of the old Games Workshop stuff, your War Master and your Epic 40Ks were in metal. There's a lot of plastic too. But yeah, you definitely had that kind of stuff, so it makes sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and if you're coming at this more from the painting side of things than the kobold specific side of things, hey, try painting in different scales. And if you're going to go for kind of smaller than your typical 25 millimeter scale, instead of going to your War Masters or whatever, I'd actually recommend kobolds, because I think that's going to give you a better result in terms of your mental health and in terms of your spiritual well-being.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, on that note,
thank you again for joining us on the first ever and not last episode of Kobold Talk. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help us out by leaving us a review on iTunes, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and sharing this message with your kobold friends. And as always, we appreciate each and every one of you for listening. And remember, take candle.
Take candle.
Mm-hmm.